The cold bit through my coat like it had a personal grudge. February in Milan wasn't supposed to feel this vicious. But then again, I wasn't supposed to be standing outside La Scala's private annex at 11 at night, watching women in fur stoles glide past me like I was part of the architecture. I pressed my fingers against the staff entrance keypad, felt the metal burn against my skin, and stepped into the golden heat. Inside, the world transformed. Marble floors caught the light from chandeliers that probably cost more than my entire neighborhood. I shrugged out of my coat in the service corridor, smoothing down the black dress that marked me as invisible, one of 24 servers circulating through rooms where people made decisions that moved markets. My manager, Signora Renzi, materialized beside me with her tablet and her permanent expression of controlled panic. Table 7 needs immediate attention. VIPs from the north. Don't speak unless spoken to, don't make eye contact, and for God's sake, don't drop anything. She thrust a tray of champagne flutes into my hands. Go. I moved through the crowd with the ghost step we'd all perfected, weaving between conversations in 3 languages, past women whose jewelry caught light like small fires. Table 7 sat in an alcove designed for privacy, 6 men in suits that whispered money even before they moved. The man at the head faced away from me, but I felt his presence like a shift in air pressure, dark hair, perfect posture, and an absolutely still quality that made everyone else seem frantic. I approached from his left, setting champagne down with the careful choreography of the unseen. His cologne reached me first, cedar and something darker, something that smelled like cold stone and expensive choices. I was reaching for the last glass when my phone vibrated in my pocket, the emergency pattern. 3 short bursts. Nana. My hand faltered. The glass touched crystal with a sound like a tiny bell. The man's head turned fractionally. Not enough to look at me, just enough to acknowledge the imperfection. I felt heat crawl up my neck as I finished the placement and started to retreat. My phone wouldn't stop. 3 bursts, pause, 3 bursts. The hospice knew not to call unless. Excuse me. The words left my mouth before wisdom could stop them. 6 pairs of eyes swung toward me, and I realized I'd just committed the cardinal sin of visibility. I apologize. I need one moment. I was already moving toward the service corridor, hands shaking as I pulled out my phone. The man at table 7 said something low in Italian to his companions. I caught only 2 words. Let her, and interessante. The call connected as I pushed through the door into the staff room. Pronto. Signorina Castellano. The night nurse's voice carried bad news in its careful gentleness. Your grandmother is asking for you. Her blood pressure dropped again. The doctor thinks, we think you should come soon. My throat closed. How soon? Tonight would be wise. I switched languages without thinking, my Sicilian dialect emerging from wherever I'd buried it since moving north. Igrav Cassian. Can she hear me if I talk to her? She's drifting, but yes. Would you like me to? Put the phone to her ear, please. There was rustling, then silence with breath underneath it. I closed my eyes and forced steadiness into my voice. Nana, it's Myra. I'm coming, you hear me? Stay awake. Stay with me. I'll be there in 40 minutes. Keep your eyes open for me. A whisper that might have been my name. Fight, Nana, the way you taught me. I'm on my way. I ended the call and stood there shaking, doing the math I'd done 100 times. Last train left 20 minutes ago. Taxi to the hospice would cost €80 I absolutely didn't have. Bus route involved 2 transfers and would take 90 minutes. I pressed my palms against my eyes and tried to remember how to breathe. When I opened them, the man from table 7 stood in the doorway. Up close, he was younger than I'd assumed, maybe 35, with dark eyes that seemed to catalog everything in precise detail. His suit fit like it had been born on him. He regarded me with the patient attention of someone accustomed to reading situations in seconds. You need to get to the hospice on Via Marsala. His Italian carried a northern precision, every syllable deliberate. I heard the address when the nurse mentioned it. I'll manage, I said, switching back to formal Italian and adding how my voice wavered. Please excuse the disruption. I'll return to. You speak Sicilian. He said it like he was confirming a calculation. Agrigento dialect, unless I'm mistaken, and you apologize to your grandmother in the formal register before switching. Educated but trying to hide it under server's Italian. I stared at him. I really need to go. You switched languages mid-sentence on the phone. 3 languages in under 2 minutes, each one perfect. He pulled a phone from his inner pocket, typed something with his thumbs. How many do you actually speak? 5. Why does that? You have a degree. Linguistics, Università di Palermo. Sir, I'm sorry, but my grandmother is at Via Marsala Hospice and you have no way to get there quickly. He pocketed his phone. A car is waiting at the east entrance. It will take you. Wait as long as necessary and bring you back if you choose. The offer hung in the air like smoke. I knew the shape of debts, how they compounded. I can't accept that. You can't not accept it. His voice stayed level. The alternative is you take buses for 90 minutes while your grandmother waits. That's not actually an option, Signorina Castellano. He knew my last name. Of course he did. He'd probably known it since the champagne glass chimed. What does it cost? I asked. Something flickered in his expression, not quite approval but close. A conversation, later, when your grandmother is stable. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting tonight. He stepped aside from the doorway. East entrance, black Mercedes. Driver's name is Tommaso. Go. I went. The Mercedes was warm and smelled like leather. Tommaso, 60 with kind eyes, drove like he knew exactly how urgency and traffic laws could coexist. We cut through Milan's nighttime geometry in 20 minutes. I spent the drive holding Nana's rosary and trying not to calculate what I just agreed to. The hospice smelled like artificial flowers and industrial cleaning solution. Nana lay in her bed by the window, smaller than she'd been last week, her breathing shallow. I pulled a chair close and took her hand. I'm here, I whispered. You can rest now. Her eyes opened, still that fierce Sicilian brown. Myra, you came fast. Always, I smoothed her hair back. How do you feel? Like I'm going somewhere. Her smile was faint. But not tonight. Tonight you're here, so I'll stay. We sat in silence, her hand in mine, while machines beeped their steady confirmation of life. After an hour, her breathing deepened into actual sleep. The nurse came in, checked monitors, and gave me a small nod of reassurance. She's stable. You should go home, get rest. We'll call if anything changes. I kissed Nana's forehead and walked back outside. The Mercedes still sat at the curb. Tommaso opened the rear door. Signor Valent asked me to ensure you arrived home safely. Valent, now the man had a name. I can walk from here, I said. Signor Valent anticipated you would say that. He was quite specific in his instructions. Tommaso's expression carried decades of practiced neutrality. He can be persuasive about details. I got in the car. My apartment building looked even more tired after an hour in leather and climate control. Tommaso handed me a card as I exited, heavy stock minimalist printing. Just a name, Dante Valent, and below it a phone number. He'll expect your call tomorrow, Tommaso said, before noon. The car glided away before I could ask what happened if I didn't call. I climbed 4 flights to my apartment, unlocked 3 separate locks, and stood in my tiny kitchen trying to understand what had just happened. A man who sat at tables where silence meant power had heard me break protocol. He'd listened to my dialect, assessed my education, and decided I was worth something beyond champagne placement. Now he wanted a conversation. I looked at the card in my hand, at the number that would connect me to whatever world moved beneath Milan's elegant surface. The smart choice was obvious. Throw the card away, forget the debt, stay invisible. I set the card on my counter and knew I wouldn't throw it away. Outside, the February cold pressed against my window. Inside, I stood in the warmth of my cheap apartment and felt the weight of choices I hadn't yet made. Tomorrow, I would call the number. Tonight, I went to bed wondering what language we would speak when I did. The card sat on my kitchen counter all morning like an accusation. I cleaned my apartment, made coffee, and avoided looking directly at it while it radiated expensive paper stock and unanswered questions. At 11:47, I picked up my phone. He answered on the second ring. "Signorina Castellano, thank you for calling." His voice carried the same measured quality from last night. No music in the background, no ambient noise, just focused attention. "I wanted to thank you," I said carefully. "The car made all the difference. My grandmother is stable." "I'm glad to hear that." A pause. "You're calling to discharge the debt." "I'm calling to understand what it is." "Direct, good." I heard something that might have been approval. "I have a proposition. Meet me this afternoon, 2 o'clock, Caf Cova, just conversation, public place. You can walk away at any point." "And if I don't meet you?" "Then you don't." The car was a gift, not leverage. But I think you're curious, and I think you're smart enough to hear an opportunity when it's offered. He ended the call before I could respond. Caf Cova occupied the corner of Via Mont Napoleon like a jewel box, all marble and mirrors and history. I arrived at 1:55 wearing my only good coat and the careful expression of someone pretending they belonged in spaces where coffee cost 12 euros. Dante Valent sat at a corner table, reading a newspaper in French. He looked up as I approached, folded the paper with precise movements, and stood. "You're early," he said. "I hate being late." Another useful quality. He gestured to the chair across from him. A server materialized, set down an espresso I hadn't ordered, and vanished. "You researched me." It wasn't a question. I had spent the morning with my phone and my university's alumni access to news archives. Dante Valent, CEO of Valent Logistics, 34, educated in Switzerland and London, ran shipping operations across the Mediterranean. The legitimate articles praised his business acumen. The ones between the lines suggested his logistics empire moved more than legal cargo. "You own half of Milan's shipping," I said, "and possibly several politicians." His smile was brief. "I facilitate movement, goods, information, people. I make things arrive where they're needed." That's one way to describe it. You speak 5 languages. You have a linguistics degree from a good university. You're working as a server in an event space, which means you're either hiding from something or haven't found the right opportunity. He leaned back. "I'm offering the opportunity." "To do what?" "Translate, interpret, attend meetings where multiple languages are spoken and nuance matters. I need someone who can hear what's not being said in 4 different dialects." "You have interpreters." "I have people who translate words. I need someone who translates intent." He turned his espresso cup in its saucer. "You switched from formal Italian to Sicilian dialect mid-sentence last night. That's not just fluency, that's code switching, relationship mapping, and cultural navigation happening simultaneously. That's rare. It's also potentially illegal, depending on what you're interpreting." "I facilitate movement," he repeated. "Sometimes that happens in gray areas. But I don't move weapons, I don't move people against their will, and I don't move drugs. Everything else is negotiable." "And when the negotiation involves something I won't translate?" "Then you don't translate it." His eyes stayed level. "I need someone I can trust. That only works if you can say no." The server returned, set down a small plate of pastries. Dante pushed it toward me. "You haven't eaten today," he said. "How could you possibly?" "Your hands trembled when you picked up the espresso. Your coat is good quality but 10 years old, maintained obsessively, which means you can't afford to replace it. You work night shifts at high-end events and visit a hospice daily. You're running on coffee and fear." His voice softened fractionally. "Eat something." I took a pastry because my pride had limits and my blood sugar had boundaries. It tasted like butter and almonds, and the kind of expense that made my teeth ache. "3 months," Dante said. "Work for me for 3 months. I'll pay you €4,000 per week, cover your grandmother's hospice care, and arrange for a specialist consultation from Switzerland. At the end of 3 months, you can walk away with no obligation." I did the math. €48,000, more than I'd make in 2 years of night shifts, enough to cover Nana's care and my rent and maybe sleep at night. "Why me?" I asked. "You could hire someone with more experience." "Experience teaches caution. I need instinct. Last night you broke protocol to answer an emergency. That means you understand priority and risk." He finished his espresso. "And you speak Sicilian. Most of my northern interpreters miss those dialects. You won't." "What happens in 3 months?" "You decide if you want to continue. Or you take your money, your grandmother's paid care, and you walk away. No threats, no leverage. Clean break." It was too simple. Nothing in life was this clean. "There's something you're not telling me," I said. "Many things. You'll learn them as you need to." He pulled out his phone, typed something. "I'm sending you an address. Apartment building in Porta Nuova. 3 bedrooms, furnished, secure entry. It's yours for the duration of our arrangement. Move in today if you'd like." My phone buzzed. I looked at the address, one of those glass towers I'd walked past and never considered entering. "I have an apartment in a building with broken locks and mold in the corners. I've seen your address." He stood, buttoned his jacket with movements that suggested a century of tailors perfecting the art. "You can't work for me if you're exhausted and sick. Consider it a business expense." "This is insane." "This is logistics." He placed a key card on the table. "The apartment. My driver will collect you at 6 to bring you to the office. We have a meeting tomorrow in Genoa, French and Italian maritime contracts. Easy entry point." I haven't said yes. "You will." He picked up his coat. "You know your grandmother needs consistent care. You know 3 months of this salary changes your life. And you're curious about what exists beyond champagne service and broken locks." He was right. I hated that he was right. "What do I call you?" I asked. "Dante, will be working closely. Formality becomes tedious." He pulled on his coat with the same precise movements. "Myra, right. Your grandmother called you Myra." "Yes." "Good, I'll see you at 6, Myra." He left money on the table, too much for 2 espressos and pastries, and walked out into the cold afternoon. I sat there holding a key card that felt like a door opening and closing simultaneously. The server approached. "Will you be having anything else, Signorina?" I looked at the key card, at the address glowing on my phone, at the window where Milan's expensive district pressed against the glass. "No," I said. "I think I have everything I need." I went home, packed a bag, and took the metro to Porta Nuova. The apartment occupied the 23rd floor with views that turned Milan into light and geometry. 3 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows, furniture that looked like architectural statements. The refrigerator held groceries I hadn't bought. The bathroom had towels that felt like clouds. I stood in the master bedroom and tried to recognize the person who could live here. At 5:55, my phone buzzed. "Driver downstairs." I grabbed my coat and went down to meet whatever I'd just agreed to become. Tommaso waited by the same Mercedes. "Good evening, Signorina Castellano. Signor Valent is waiting at the office." The office occupied a converted warehouse in Porta Romana, the kind of building that looked deliberately unremarkable from the outside. Inside, it opened into clean lines and expensive emptiness. Exposed brick, designer lighting, spaces designed for watching without being watched. A woman in her 50s met me in the lobby, sharp suit, silver hair in a perfect twist, eyes that cataloged me in 2 seconds. Elena Costa, Senor Valent's executive assistant. You'll work closely with me on scheduling and briefings. She shook my hand with exactly calibrated pressure. Welcome, let's go upstairs. We took an elevator to the 3rd floor. Elena spoke as we rose. Basic parameters. You attend meetings, translate as needed, and report anything that feels inconsistent or threatening. Senor Valent values your linguistic instinct more than your business experience. If you're uncertain about something, flag it. If you're uncomfortable with something, say so. Understood. What if I'm uncomfortable with most things? Her smile was brief. Then you're appropriately cautious. Good. The elevator opened into a corner office where Dante stood reviewing documents with a younger man in an expensive suit. He glanced up as we entered. Myra, this is Marco, my legal counsel. Marco, this is Myra Castellano, our new interpreter. Marco nodded, collected his papers. I'll send those revisions tonight. He left with the efficiency of someone who recognized dismissal. Elena handed me a tablet. Tomorrow's meeting details. Maritime contract negotiation between Italian and French parties. Genoa, 10 a.m. We'll fly out at 8. Fly. Private charter. Senor Valent doesn't waste time in airports. She tapped the tablet screen. These are the principles. Read their backgrounds tonight. Dress code is business formal. There's a wardrobe stipend card in your welcome packet. Questions? About 100. Ask 3. The rest you'll learn by doing. I looked at the tablet, at the names and photographs of men who moved shipping containers like chess pieces. How much am I allowed to say in meetings? Whatever you need to translate accurately. Senor Valent will signal if he wants your input on substance. Elena's expression softened fractionally. You're there to be his ears, not his voice. But if you hear something dangerous, interrupt. Define dangerous. Anything that sounds like a trap. Dante had approached without sound, reading over my shoulder. Anyone making promises they can't keep. Anyone asking questions designed to expose weakness. You have good instincts, trust them. That's not very specific. It's intentionally flexible. I need you thinking, not following a checklist. He took the tablet, scrolled through pages. The French party tomorrow is testing new waters. They want to expand routes through Sicily. They'll ask about my family connections there. Do you have family connections there? My father did before he died. He handed the tablet back. They'll ask in French, assuming I only speak business Italian. You'll translate, but pay attention to how they ask. Inflection matters. What do I say? Exactly what they say. I'll handle the subtext. He checked his watch. Elena will walk you through the logistics. Tomorrow starts early. Get rest. He returned to his desk, attention already shifting to the next document. Elena guided me back to the elevator. He seems, I searched for the word. Controlled, Elena offered. He is, that's what makes him effective. Work with him, not for him, he'll respect you more. The elevator arrived. The car will collect you at 7 tomorrow, where layers Genoa is windy, and Myra. Yes. Welcome to the interesting part of your life. The doors closed before I could ask what she meant. Back in my new apartment, I ordered food I didn't cook and sat in front of floor-to-ceiling windows, reading about men who moved millions in cargo without appearing in photographs. Dante Valent kept showing up in margins, a name in an article about port modernization, a quote about logistics efficiency, a photograph at a charity gala where he stood slightly apart from everyone else. Between articles, I called the hospice. Nana was sleeping peacefully, no change. I went to bed in 1,000 thread-count sheets and dreamed about cold water and doors that locked from the outside. At 6:55 a.m., Tommaso called from downstairs. I wore my new business suit, paid for with the wardrobe card Elena had included in a leather folio. and felt like I was wearing someone else's skin. The drive to the airfield took 40 minutes. Dawn turned Milan into bronze and shadow. We pulled onto a private strip where a small jet waited, stairs already deployed. Dante stood at the base wearing a dark suit and reading something on his phone. He looked up as I approached. "You look professional." I looked terrified. "That's normal. Come on. We have an hour of flight and I want to brief you properly." Inside, the jet was all leather and quiet luxury. 6 seats, a small conference table, espresso machine that looked more complex than my university degree. Dante gestured to the seat across from his. "We're meeting 3 parties. The French principals Marcel Dubois and his son Anton. They run container operations in Marseille. The Italians are local Genoa families, Salvatore Morti and his nephew. They control port access." He pulled up photographs on a tablet. "Dubois Sr. is old school. He'll test your French to see if you're actually fluent or just passing. Answer in Parisian formal, not regional. It's a status marker." "And if Anton speaks?" "He'll try English to see if I defer to it. Don't translate unless I signal." He swiped to the next image. "Morty is Sicilian via Genoa. He'll recognize your accent within 5 words. Use it, he'll trust you more." "Is this legal?" I asked. "The contracts, yes, everything gets registered properly." He met my eyes. "The politics underneath, gray. Everyone at that table has interests that don't appear on customs forms, but we're negotiating routes and fees, not moving contraband." "What if they ask me to translate something illegal?" "Then you flag it and we leave. I told you you can say no." The jet's engines changed pitch. We were moving. Dante crossed to the espresso machine, made 2 cups with practiced efficiency. He handed me one, perfect crema, temperature exactly right. "You know how to make coffee," I said. "I know how to do most things people assume I hire others for. It's useful." He returned to his seat as the jet lifted. "Tell me about your grandmother." The subject shift caught me off balance. "What about her?" "You speak to her in formal Italian when you're stressed, Sicilian when you're comforting her. That's not typical. Most people do the reverse." "She taught me formal Italian first, said I'd need it to survive north of Rome." I drank the espresso, felt it burn away the last of my sleep. "She raised me after my parents died, made sure I went to university, worked 3 jobs to keep me there." Hence the guilt about hospice care. "It's not guilt, it's debt. Same thing for people like us." He set down his cup. "My father died when I was 16, left me a logistics company that was 3 months from bankruptcy and a list of people who wanted to finish the job. I learned fast that debt and loyalty look identical until you need to tell them apart." "How do you tell them apart?" "Loyalty offers choices, debt offers consequences." He returned to the tablet. "We're landing in 20 minutes. Review the names again. Dubois will try to dominate the conversation. Let him. Morty will watch everything and say little. Watch him back." The meeting took place in a conference room overlooking Genoa's harbor. Gray water, gray sky, shipping containers stacked like a child's blocks in colors that defied the monochrome day. 6 men in expensive suits, 1 woman in Armani who turned out to be Dubois' lawyer. I sat beside Dante, tablet in hand, trying to look competent while my heart attempted escape velocity. Dubois opened in French, all charm and casual dominance. "Monsieur Vaillant, a pleasure, and you've brought an assistant." "Translator," Dante corrected in Italian. "Myra Castellano. She'll ensure we all understand each other perfectly." I translated in Parisian French, keeping my register formal. Dubois' eyebrows rose fractionally. Approval or surprise, I couldn't tell. "Excellent," he said, continuing in French. "Then we can speak plainly. We propose expansion through Sicilian ports. Naples is congested, Palermo has better access, and your family's historical connections there could smooth certain administrative barriers." I translated to Italian. keeping my voice neutral while my mind flagged historical connections and administrative barriers as euphemisms worth watching. Dante responded in Italian. My family's connections are historical for a reason. I operate through legitimate channels. Morty spoke for the first time, his Sicilian accent thick and deliberate. But legitimate channels still need navigation, no. We all understand that paperwork moves faster with the right encouragement. I felt Dante's attention sharpen, though his posture didn't change. I'm interested in sustainable routes, not temporary arrangements. What are the actual logistical advantages of Palermo? The discussion shifted to cargo capacity, port fees, and infrastructure. I translated continuously, watching faces as much as words. Anton Dubois kept checking his phone, boredom or distraction. Morty's nephew took notes in small, precise handwriting. The lawyer said nothing but missed nothing. An hour in, Dubois shifted tactics. Of course, expanded routes require expanded trust. We'd need assurance that cargo arrives without inspection complications. I translated, adding weight to inspection complications. Dante's response was measured. I can't control customs. What I can control is timing, documentation quality, and route selection that minimizes delays. If your cargo is legitimate, I'll ensure it moves efficiently. And if it's not strictly legitimate, Anton asked, speaking for the first time. The room temperature dropped 5 degrees. I translated to Italian, then waited. Dante was silent for exactly 3 heartbeats. Then you're talking to the wrong logistics company, he said. I move legal cargo through proper channels, efficiently, discreetly when needed, but always within bounds that don't attract the kind of attention that shuts down entire operations. If you need something else, I'm sure Marseille has options. I translated into French, watching Dubois Sr.'s face. His expression flickered, recalculation happening behind expensive composure. Of course, Dubois said smoothly. We merely test boundaries of possibility. Understanding limits is part of negotiation. Now we understand them, Dante agreed. Shall we discuss rates? The rest of the meeting was numbers and timelines. Morty suggested weekly container routes. Dubois countered with twice monthly. They settled on 10 times per quarter with volume increases after 6 months. I translated technical specifications until my brain felt like language soup. As they stood to leave, Morty approached me directly. You're from Agrigento. My grandmother is, I said in Sicilian. I grew up there before university. Castellano family. Yes, signor. His expression changed, recognition mixed with something older. Your grandfather was Tomas Castellano. My stomach tightened. He died before I was born. He was a good man, principled. Morty glanced at Dante. You've chosen interesting company to keep, Signorina. I translate words, not loyalties, I said. Smart answer. He handed me a card. If you ever need anything in Sicily, call that number, for your grandfather's memory. He left before I could respond. In the car back to the airfield, Dante was silent for the first 10 minutes. I watched Genoa slip away through tinted windows. That went well, Alina said from the front seat. She'd appeared at the end of the meeting like a ghost materializing. The contract will finalize by week's end. Dubois was testing limits, I said. The question about illegitimate cargo wasn't casual. No, it wasn't, Dante finally spoke. What was your read? He wanted to see if you'd negotiate. When you didn't, he respected it. But Anton is frustrated. He thinks his father is being too cautious. Good catch, Anton will need watching. He turned slightly. Morty's interest in your grandfather. I don't know. He died 30 years ago. Some kind of business connection, maybe. Find out. Family history matters in this world. His phone buzzed. He read something, frowned. Change of plans. We're not going back to Milan tonight. Where are we going? Como. There's someone I need to meet and you should be there." The jet banked north as afternoon light turned the Ligurian Sea into hammered silver. I looked at Morty's card in my hand and wondered what my grandfather had done that still earned respect 3 decades after death. Outside, the world tilted and righted itself, and I felt the same thing happening inside my chest. Camo appeared through clouds like a Renaissance painting, like water dark as ink, mountains holding up the sky, villas cascading down hillsides in arrangements that seemed both natural and designed. We landed at a private field where another car waited, this one a discreet Audi with tinted windows. "The meeting is at a private residence," Dante said as we drove along the lake. "Former shipping magnate, now mostly retired. He occasionally brokers introductions between parties who shouldn't meet directly." "That's vague enough to mean anything." "Exactly." He checked his phone. "His name is Luca Santorelli. He knew my father. He'll test you the way Dubois did, differently but just as deliberately." "What kind of test?" "That's what makes it a test." The villa emerged from cypress trees like it had grown there. 18th century stone, modern glass additions, gardens that probably required a full-time staff. We were met at the door by a man in his 60s, white hair swept back, linen suit that probably cost more than my old apartment. "Dante," they embraced briefly. "Too long. You look like your father when he was building the company." "Luca, thank you for making time." Dante gestured to me. "This is Myra Castellano, my interpreter." Luca's eyes sharpened. "Castellano from Sicily." "My grandmother's family, yes." "Tomas Castellano's granddaughter." He said it with certainty, not question. "Come, we'll have coffee and conversation." We followed him through rooms where art hung with casual wealth. What might have been a Caravaggio sketch, definitely a Morandi still life. The terrace overlooked the lake, a table set for 3. Luca poured espresso from a silver service. "Your grandfather was a man of principle, rare quality then and now." "Everyone keeps saying that," I replied carefully, "but no one explains what it means." "It means he chose honor over profit when the two conflicted. It cost him." Luca added sugar to his coffee. "He worked with Dante's father in the early days. They had philosophical differences about methods." Dante set down his cup. "I didn't know they worked together." "Your father didn't advertise certain partnerships. Tomas believed in clean business, legitimate channels, transparency. He thought the logistics industry could be modernized without maintaining old arrangements. He was right, but early." Luca smiled sadly. "The world wasn't ready. Certain parties made their displeasure clear." "How did he die?" I asked. "Car accident. Very convenient timing." Luca met my eyes. "Never proven otherwise, but your grandmother moved you away from Sicily shortly after. Smart woman." The espresso suddenly tasted bitter. "Are you saying he was killed for wanting legitimate business practices?" "I'm saying the logistics world had different rules 30 years ago. Your grandfather's principles made him a problem for people who preferred gray areas." Luca turned to Dante. "Which brings me to why you're here. Vittorio Marchesi is asking questions about your Sicilian expansion." Dante's expression didn't change, but I felt him go still. "What kind of questions?" "The kind that suggest he's feeling territorial. He's been talking to regulators, mentioning concerns about new competition disrupting established arrangements." Luca refilled our cups. "He wants a meeting. Neutral territory, just conversation. I'm offering to host." "Marchesi doesn't do just conversation." "No, he orchestrates, but refusing the meeting sends its own message." Luca glanced at me. "This would be a good opportunity for your interpreter to observe how different generations of this business interact." "It would also paint a target on her," Dante said. "She already has one. The moment she walked into that Genoa meeting with Morty asking about her grandfather, she became visible." Luca's voice gentled. "Better she understands the landscape now, while she can still make informed choices. We stayed for an hour discussing meeting logistics and Marchese's probable angles. Luca was charming and sharp, treating me like an equal participant rather than an accessory. As we prepared to leave, he handed me a book, old, leather-bound, pages soft with age. Your grandfather gave this to your grandmother as a wedding gift. Dante's father returned it to your grandmother after. She left it with me before she moved north, said she couldn't look at it but couldn't throw it away. He pressed it into my hands. I think it's time it came home. I opened it carefully. Dante's Divine Comedy, annotated in the margins in my grandfather's handwriting. Notes in Italian and Latin, observations about justice and loyalty and the nature of punishment. Thank you, I managed. In the car back to the airfield, I held the book and tried to process what Luca had revealed. Dante was silent, watching the lake recede through the window. Your father and my grandfather worked together, I said finally. Apparently. And my grandfather died because he wanted to go legitimate. Possibly, we'll never know for certain. He turned from the window. Does it change anything? I don't know, should it? That's up to you. His voice stayed neutral. We can end the arrangement now if this is too complicated. I'll honor the full 3-month salary, cover your grandmother's care, and we part professionally. I looked at the book in my lap, at my grandfather's handwriting looping through Dante's circles of hell. What did Luca mean about me already having a target? He meant that people who pay attention have noticed you. My competitors track who I hire, who I trust with translation. The moment you showed linguistic skill in front of witnesses, you became information worth knowing. That's not comforting. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be true. He leaned back. Tomorrow, Marchese will meet us at Luca's villa. He'll bring people who speak multiple languages badly, testing your accuracy. He'll mention things designed to provoke reaction. Your job is to translate everything neutrally and watch for threats. What kind of threats? The subtle kind. Offers that sound generous but contain hooks, compliments that are actually warnings, questions designed to expose weakness. He checked his watch. We'll fly back to Milan tonight, brief properly tomorrow morning. Elena will send you background on Marchese. Read it carefully. The jet rose into evening sky, Como shrinking to Toy Town perfection below. I opened my grandfather's book and read his marginalia about souls trapped by their own choices. Somewhere over the Alps, Dante spoke again. Your grandfather was right, you know, about legitimate business being possible. He was just too early and not strong enough to survive the transition. Are you strong enough? We'll find out. He returned to his phone. The difference is I'm not doing it alone, and I'm not naive about what the transition costs. I fell asleep somewhere over Switzerland, my grandfather's book open on my lap, and woke as we descended into Milan's nighttime glitter. Tommaso drove me to the apartment, where my new life waited in climate-controlled perfection. I made tea, stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, and called the hospice. Nana was awake, lucid, complaining about the food, all good signs. How are you, Bambina? She asked. You sound tired. Long day, travel. I hesitated. Nana, what happened to Nano really happened. Silence on the line, long enough that I thought we'd been disconnected. Why are you asking now? I met someone who knew him, who knew about his work. Ah, her voice carried old grief. He tried to change things that didn't want changing. He believed the world could be better if men simply chose better. He was beautiful and foolish and right. Someone killed him. Someone let him die. There's a difference. She coughed, recovered. Myra, where are you working now? Tell me truth. I looked out at Milan, at the city that had swallowed me into its bright machinery. I'm translating for a logistics company. The owner knew Nano, knew his work. Says he's trying to do what Nano wanted, make things legitimate. And you believe him? I don't know yet. Good, doubt is wisdom. Her breathing was labored. Come see me soon. I want to meet this man who remembers your grandfather's principles. We said good night. I sat in expensive silence and wondered what my grandfather would think of his annotated Dante in his granddaughter's hands, 30 years later, as she translated for the son of his former partner. Outside, Milan's lights burned like 1,000 small choices, each one bright and possibly terrible. I went to bed thinking about circles of hell and the people who navigated them by choice rather than punishment. Morning arrived with Alina's text at 6 a.m., briefing at 8, where something elegant but not flashy, think gallery opening. The wardrobe card had covered elegant. I chose a slate gray dress, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back. Professional but not trying too hard. In the mirror, I looked like someone who belonged in rooms where decisions got made. The office was already active when I arrived, phones ringing, people moving with purpose through the open floor plan. Alina met me in the lobby with coffee and a tablet. Marchesi background is loaded. We have 40 minutes before Dante needs you. She guided me to a quiet conference room. Questions before you read. Is he dangerous? Yes, but predictably so. He's old guard, thinks the world should operate on handshake agreements and family loyalty. Hates that Dante uses contracts and lawyers. She pulled up a photograph on the tablet. Vittorio Marchesi, 68, owns shipping operations in Sicily and Calabria. 3 sons in the business, 2 daughters married into old families. Catholic, conservative, nostalgic for when men like him ran things without paperwork. I scrolled through the file. Marchesi looked like someone's grandfather, round face, kind eyes, carefully trimmed beard. The kind of man who probably made excellent espresso and remembered everyone's birthday. He looks harmless. That's deliberate. He cultivates the grandfather image while running operations that would make a younger man nervous. Alina sat across from me. He'll ask you about your family. Answer truthfully but briefly. He's gathering information, not making conversation. What's his relationship with Dante? Complicated. He respected Dante's father, tolerates Dante, and resents that Dante represents everything changing in the business. He wants traditional arrangements, percentages, territories, respect. Dante wants contracts, lawyers, and legitimacy. They've coexisted because neither wants open conflict, but Dante's Sicilian expansion threatens Marchesi's territory. So this meeting is a boundary negotiation disguised as polite conversation. Alina checked her watch. Read the rest. I'll get you in 15 minutes. The file painted a picture of a man who'd built power through relationships and memory. Marchesi remembered every favor, every slight, every family connection going back 3 generations. He didn't use violence. He used obligation and tradition and the weight of how things were done. When Alina returned, we went upstairs to Dante's office. He stood at the window in a dark suit, looking at Milan like he was calculating its weight. Ready? He asked without turning. No. Honest? Good. He turned, adjusted his tie. Marchesi will try to make you uncomfortable. He'll mention your grandfather in ways designed to create emotional reaction. Stay neutral, translate accurately, and if anything feels wrong, signal me. How do I signal you? Touch your left earring, he demonstrated. I'll create an excuse to pause. We took the helicopter to Como. Alina came with us, working through emails while the landscape blurred below. At Luca's villa, we were shown to a different terrace, this one enclosed in glass with lake views that felt like living in a postcard. Marchesi arrived 10 minutes later with 2 men I recognized from the file. His eldest son, Francesco, and his consigliere, a thin man named Paolo. They embraced Luca with genuine warmth, shook Dante's hand with measured respect, and assessed me with the kind of attention usually reserved for art appraisals. Signorina Castellano. Marchesi took my hand with old-world courtesy. Tomas Castellano's granddaughter. He was a man of honor. You carry his name well. Thank you, Senor. I'm honored you remember him. One doesn't forget men of principle. He settled into a chair with the heaviness of age and authority. And now you translate for young Dante. Life's symmetries are interesting, no. Coincidence is cheaper than design, I replied in Sicilian. His eyes lit with approval. She has the dialect, excellent, we can speak plainly. The meeting started in Italian, neutral, professional. Dante outlined his Sicilian expansion plans, new routes through Palermo and Catania, partnerships with local companies, all properly contracted and documented. Marchesi listened with the patience of someone who'd perfected the art of waiting. You speak of partnerships, Marchesi said eventually, switching to Sicilian. But partnership requires shared understanding. Certain arrangements in Sicily have existed for decades. They work because everyone respects the architecture. I translated to formal Italian, preserving his meaning while smoothing the dialect. Dante responded in Italian. I respect existing arrangements. I'm not looking to disrupt what works, but I operate through legal contracts, not traditional understandings. The two can coexist. Can they? Francesco leaned forward. Contracts invite scrutiny. Lawyers ask questions. Transparency is expensive for everyone. Transparency is protection, Dante countered. It ensures that when attention comes, and it always comes, everyone survives the examination. Marchesi smiled slowly. Your father used to say similar things, before he learned that some attention can't be survived transparently. The temperature in the room dropped. I translated carefully, watching Dante's face. His expression didn't change. My father learned many lessons, Dante said. I've chosen to apply different ones. By hearing Tomas Castellano's granddaughter, that's not strategy, ragazzo, that's theater. Marchesi's voice stayed gentle. You want legitimacy so badly that you've built it from borrowed symbolism. The translator whose grandfather died for principle, the clean contracts, the proper documentation. It's impressive. It's also fragile. I translated, feeling my pulse in my throat. Nothing I've built is borrowed, Dante replied. And Myra is here because she's exceptional at her job, not because of her family name. Of course. Marchesi turned to me directly, switching to rapid Sicilian. Tell me, Signorina, does he pay you enough to be his shield? Because that's the position you occupy. The pure translator, the principled employee. When investigators come asking why certain cargo moves so efficiently, your legitimacy becomes his defense. I translated to Italian, keeping my voice steady while my mind raced. He was right. I was symbolic legitimacy, walking proof that Dante hired based on merit and operated cleanly. Signor Marchesi, I said carefully, staying in Italian. I translate words. I don't carry meanings that aren't spoken. Ah, but you carry history. Your grandfather's history, your grandmother's displacement, your own linguistic excellence despite economic hardship. It's a beautiful story. Dante tells it well. He sipped his espresso. I'm not criticizing. I'm observing that stories protect until they don't. Dante stood, buttoned his jacket. I appreciate your observations. Here's mine. Sicily has room for both traditional arrangements and modern operations. I'm not asking for your territory, I'm offering coordination. New routes benefit everyone if we're not competing for the same channels. And if I prefer competition, then we compete, professionally, legally, and with enough space that everyone survives. Dante extended his hand. That's the offer. Take time to consider it. Marchesi remained seated for a long moment before standing. They shook hands with the formality of men agreeing to disagree. You're like your father in one way, Marchesi said. You believe you can change the game by refusing to play it the old way. But the game doesn't change, ragazzo. It just finds new pieces. We left with Luca's polite goodbyes and careful neutrality. In the helicopter, Elena worked her phone while Dante stared out at the lake. That went badly, I said. It went exactly as expected. Dante's voice was tired. He needed to establish dominance and warn me publicly. Now everyone knows he's watching, which means he won't need to act. Yet. He called me a shield. You are, but not the way he meant it. Dante turned from the window. He thinks you're symbolic, you're actually strategic. There's a difference. Explain it to me. Symbolic means decorative, present to signal values without affecting operations. Strategic means integrated. Your skills and judgment actively shape what we do and how we do it. He held my gaze. You caught his subtext immediately. You translated it neutrally while understanding the threat. That's why you're valuable. Not because of your grandfather's ghost, but because you're sharp enough to navigate this without losing yourself. Marchesi thinks I'll lose myself anyway. Marchesi thinks everyone loses themselves in this business. He did, years ago. He assumes we will too. Dante returned to the window as Milan appeared through haze. The difference is, I'm trying to build something where losing yourself isn't the cost of participation. Is it working? Ask me in 3 months. Back at the office, Alina pulled me aside before I could leave. You handled that well. Marchesi's flattery was designed to separate you from Dante's authority. You deflected without being disrespectful. I just translated what was said. You translated what was meant, that's harder. She handed me a folder. Next week, 3 meetings, 2 in Milan, 1 in Rome, all require translation. Schedule is inside. Also, this arrived for you. Inside was a card, heavy stock, elegant printing. Dr. Hermann Weber, consulting physician, Zurich. A note beneath. I understand you have questions about hospice care options. I'll be in Milan on Thursday. Lunch if you're available. Dante arranged this, I said. He arranged the introduction. Dr. Weber's interest is genuine. He specializes in geriatric care and dignity-centered end-of-life planning. Alina's expression softened. Your grandmother deserves options. So do you. I looked at the card, at the possibility it represented. Thursday lunch, I said. I'll make time. That evening I visited Nana. She was sitting up, alert, reading a mystery novel with determined focus. She looked up as I entered. You look different, she said immediately. What changed? I pulled a chair close. I'm working for a logistics company now. Good pay, interesting work. And they've arranged for a specialist from Switzerland to consult on your care. Her eyes narrowed. What kind of logistics? The legal kind with gray shadows. I took her hand. Nana, the owner's father, worked with Nano. He remembers him, says he's trying to do what Nano wanted, make the industry legitimate. And you believe this? I think he believes it. Not the same thing. She squeezed my hand. You're smart, Bambina, but you're lonely, and loneliness makes us trust the wrong people for the right reasons. I'm not lonely. You work night shifts and live alone and have no friends your age. You're desperately lonely. Her voice gentled. I'm not criticizing. I'm reminding you to see clearly. We sat in silence, her hand in mine, while the hospice hummed its artificial comfort around us. When does this Swiss doctor come? She asked eventually. Thursday. He wants to discuss options. Options? She smiled sadly. That's a kind word for choices about dying. All right, I'll meet him for you, not for me. I kissed her forehead and stayed until she fell asleep. On the drive home, I watched Milan slide past and wondered if Nana was right, if I was trusting Dante, because the alternative was continuing to be invisible and exhausted and alone. At the apartment, I stood at the window and made the same calculation I'd been making for weeks. The value of comfort against the cost of compromise. Below, the city glittered like a promise that might be a threat. I went to bed in expensive sheets and dreamed about my grandfather's marginalia, his careful notes about souls who thought they were choosing freely until the circles closed around them. Thursday arrived with spring attempting to break through Milan's gray. I met Dr. Weber at a quiet restaurant near the Duomo, the kind of place where conversations happened in lowered voices and no one checked their phones. He was 60-something, silver-haired, with the calm competence of someone who'd watched many people die with grace. We ordered, made small talk about his flight from Zurich, then got to the point. "Dante tells me your grandmother has advanced cardiac disease," he said in perfect Italian, "and that she's currently in hospice care that focuses on comfort rather than dignity." "She's comfortable," I said defensively. "I'm sure she is, but comfort and dignity aren't the same thing." He opened a tablet, showed me photographs of a facility that looked more like an Alpine hotel than a hospital. "This is our care center in Lugano. Private rooms, lake views, full palliative team, but also, crucially, patient autonomy. Your grandmother decides her schedule, her visitors, her level of intervention. We support her choices, not override them." "What does this cost?" "For most families, prohibitive. For you," he met my eyes, "Dante has arranged full funding. Your grandmother would be our guest, not our patient." I set down my fork. "That's too much." "It's gratitude for your work and respect for your family's history. Dante's father knew your grandfather. He regrets that he couldn't help then. This is one way to address old debts." "Old debts to a dead man." "Honor doesn't expire with the person." Dr. Weber closed the tablet. "I'm not here to pressure you. I'm here to present an option. If your grandmother is interested, I can arrange transfer next week. If not, nothing changes. The offer remains whenever you're ready." "I need to talk to her." "Of course, take my card. Call any time." He paused. "For what it's worth, I've met Dante several times over the years. He's complicated, but his care for people under his protection is genuine. You're under his protection now, whether you intended it or not. That means something in his world." After lunch, I went directly to the hospice. Nana was awake, doing crosswords with fierce concentration. "There's a doctor who wants to meet you," I said. "From Switzerland. He runs a facility that might be better than here." "How much better?" "Lake views, private room, full palliative care. You'd have complete control over your own care decisions." "And the cost?" I hesitated, covered by my employer. Her expression sharpened. "He's buying you. He's honoring a debt to Nano." "Those are the same thing, Bambina, just with prettier language." She set down her crossword. "But I'm not so proud that I'll die in this place to make a point. If this Swiss doctor can give me windows and dignity, I'll meet him." I called Dr. Weber from the hallway. He arrived within an hour, spoke to Nana in Italian and Sicilian, examined her gently, and explained options with the kind of respect that made my throat tight. After 30 minutes, Nana announced she'd like to see the facility. "I can arrange transport this weekend," Dr. Weber said. "With your permission, I'd like to bring a nurse tomorrow to prepare for the transfer." "Yes," Nana said firmly, "let's do this properly." After Dr. Weber left, I sat with her in the fading afternoon light. "He's good," she said quietly. "The doctor, he sees people, not patients. Dante arranged this." "Your Dante is either very kind or very calculating, maybe both." She took my hand. "Promise me something, Myra. Promise that when you figure out which he is, you'll choose yourself first." "I promise." "Liar," but she smiled. "You'll choose what seems right. That's who you are. Just make sure right includes your survival, not just your principles." That evening, Alina called. "I heard about your grandmother's transfer. That's good news." "Is it, or is it leverage?" "It's both. Everything in this business is both." She paused. "There's a situation developing. Dante needs you tomorrow night. Dinner meeting with potential partners from France. The Dubois Group is coming to Milan. They're bringing new terms for the Sicilian routes." After Marchesi warned us off. Because Marchesi warned us off. Dubois sees opportunity in the tension. This meeting will be complicated. "How complicated?" 3 languages, 4 agendas, and at least one person trying to provoke conflict. Where something memorable, Dubois Sr. responds well to beautiful women who don't defer to him. It's a weakness we can use. I'm not bait. Your strategy, there's a difference. Her voice softened. Myra, I know this feels manipulative. It is. But you're not being manipulated, you're being positioned. You have agency in how you present and what you say. Use it. Friday night, I wore the one designer dress the wardrobe card had covered. Deep blue, elegant without being seductive, paired with simple pearl earrings. In the mirror, I looked like someone who belonged at expensive tables. The restaurant occupied a converted palazzo with frescoed ceilings and waiters who moved like dancers. Dante waited at a corner table, flanked by Marco the lawyer. He stood as I approached. "You look professional," he said. "I feel like a game piece." "Good, self-awareness is tactical." He pulled out my chair. "Dubois is bringing his lawyer and Anton. The lawyer will test your French, Anton will try English, and Dubois Sr. will use whichever language makes you work hardest. Stay sharp." The Dubois contingent arrived fashionably late. Marcel in an expensive suit that screamed old money, Anton in deliberately casual clothing that screamed rebellion, and their lawyer, a woman named Isabelle with severe glasses and sharper eyes. Dinner was a ballet of languages and subtext. Marcel opened in French, complimenting the restaurant and making small talk designed to assess my fluency. I responded in Parisian formal, matching his register and occasionally deploying vocabulary specific enough to prove education. He smiled, approval. "Mademoiselle Castellano, your French is excellent. Where did you study?" "University of Palermo, with a semester at Sorbonne." "Ah, then you understand French business culture. Good. This will simplify negotiation." He turned to Dante. "I understand Marchesi expressed concerns about your Sicilian expansion." I translated to Italian. Dante's expression didn't change. "Marchesi expressed his territorial interest. It's expected." "And your response?" "That Sicily has room for multiple operators, provided we're not competing for the same channels." Anton leaned forward, speaking in English. "But Marchesi controls the channels. How do you plan to operate without stepping on his territory?" I translated to Italian for Dante, who responded in Italian. "By creating new channels. Marchesi controls traditional routes through traditional relationships. I'm developing modern logistics partnerships with proper contracts and documentation. Different models, different clients. And if those different clients prefer traditional arrangements," Isabelle spoke for the first time in rapid French. "Not everything in Sicily operates on contracts and documentation. Some industries prefer flexibility." I translated, watching Dante's face. His eyes flickered, recognition of the trap. "I facilitate legal cargo through legal channels," Dante said in Italian. "Clients who prefer flexibility should speak to operators who offer it. I'm not that operator." "How principled," Marcel said. "Like your father, before he learned that principles limit growth." The insult was delivered with champagne toast lightness. I translated it neutrally while my pulse spiked. Dante took a slow sip of wine. "My father learned that unprincipled growth attracts attention that destroys everything. I'm choosing sustainable expansion over temporary profit. That's not limitation, that's strategy." The conversation shifted to technical details, port fees, container schedules, documentation requirements. I translated continuously, watching Marcel's face perform calculation. After dessert, he leaned back with the satisfied air of someone who'd gotten what he came for. "I appreciate your clarity, Monsieur Valent. We'll finalize terms and send contracts next week." He turned to me. "And Mademoiselle, you've been invaluable. Perfect translation requires perfect understanding. You have both." After they left, Dante signaled for another bottle of wine. Marco departed with files under his arm, leaving us alone. "You caught the trap," Dante said. Isabel's question about flexibility. She was asking if you'd move illegal cargo. And I declined clearly enough that they can't claim misunderstanding later. He poured wine for both of us. That's what tonight was about, establishing documented boundaries. Now when they eventually push against those boundaries, we have this dinner as proof of prior agreement. You're building a legal defense before the crime. I'm building protection before the attack. He met my eyes. This business runs on assumption and implication. The only defense is clarity on record. That's why you're here, to translate with witnesses. Marchesi said I'm your shield. He's right, isn't he? Yes, but shields work both ways. You protect my legitimacy and my legitimacy protects you. That's not exploitation, that's mutual defense. I drank wine and tried to decide if I believed him. My grandmother transfers to Lugano tomorrow, I said. Dr. Weber is handling everything. Good, she'll be more comfortable there. Or more obligated. Is there a difference? He turned his glass. Myra, I'm not going to pretend this is simple. I'm offering care for someone you love in exchange for your professional skills. That creates obligation. But obligation is honest. What would be dishonest is pretending it's charity. What happens when the 3 months end? You choose whether to stay or go. The care continues either way. That's the deal. Why would you continue paying if I leave? Because the debt is to your grandfather, not to you. Your work pays your salary. His memory pays her care. He finished his wine. Separate ledgers. Outside, Milan was wet with rain that hadn't existed during dinner. Tommaso waited with an umbrella, drove me home through streets that reflected light like broken mirrors. In the apartment, I stood at the window and watched weather reshape the city. My phone buzzed, a text from Nana. The Swiss doctor is kind. I'll go tomorrow. Be careful, Bambina. Kind people in complicated business are usually complicated themselves. I texted back, I know, sleep well, I love you. Below, Milan glistened with rain and possibility, and whatever happened next. Saturday morning, I rode with Nana in the medical transport to Lugano. She dozed most of the way, waking periodically to squeeze my hand and look at alpine scenery with the attention of someone memorizing beauty. The facility was everything Dr. Weber had promised: private rooms with lake views, staff who moved with quiet competence, an atmosphere of dignity rather than medical intervention. Nana's room had windows that opened, fresh flowers, furniture that looked like home rather than hospital. This is too nice to die in, she said, settling into the bed. Then don't die, just live here comfortably. Same thing eventually, but she smiled. Thank your Dante for me, this is kindness. Or strategy. Or both. Stop being so suspicious. She closed her eyes. Stay with me this afternoon. I stayed until evening, reading aloud from her mystery novel while she drifted in and out of sleep. As I prepared to leave, she caught my hand. Your Dante, does he treat you well? He treats me professionally. That's not what I asked. I thought about champagne flutes and private cars and apartments with impossible views. About being seen when I'd been invisible, valued when I'd been disposable. He treats me like I matter, I said finally. Then maybe he does. She squeezed my hand. Or maybe he needs you to believe you matter. Find out which before you fall in love with him. I'm not. Not yet, but you will. You look at him the way I looked at your grandfather, like he's complicated and you're the only one who understands the complication. Her smile was sad. That's how it starts. Make sure it ends better than it did for us. The drive back to Milan felt longer than the morning. I arrived at the apartment after dark to find Elena waiting in the lobby. Sorry to ambush you, she said, but we have a situation. Upstairs, Dante stood at the window in shirt sleeves, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian. He gestured us to sit, finished the call, turned with controlled fury barely visible in his shoulders. Marchesi made a move. He filed complaints with the Maritime Authority about our Genoa routes, claims we're operating without proper inspection compliance. It's procedural harassment designed to slow us down and cost money defending ourselves. Can he do that? I asked. He just did. The investigation will find nothing because there's nothing to find, but it ties up resources and sends a message. Dante crossed to a wall screen, pulled up documents. More concerning, he's apparently talking to financial regulators about our Sicilian partnerships, suggesting money laundering concerns. Are there concerns? No, but investigations don't require evidence to start, just suspicion. He's weaponizing regulatory systems to force me out of Sicily. Alina was already typing on her tablet. Marco is preparing responses. But Dante, this is serious. Financial investigation means frozen accounts, delayed transactions, client nervousness. Even if we're cleared, the damage happens during the process. I know, Dante's voice was flat. He's forcing a choice, retreat from Sicily or escalate. What does escalation look like? I asked. Depends on how old school we want to play. He met my eyes. I could make phone calls, activate relationships, apply pressure through traditional channels. That's how my father would have handled it. Fight institutional weapons with interpersonal leverage. But that pulls me back into the architecture I'm trying to dismantle. It proves Marchesi right, that you can't operate cleanly in this business, that eventually everyone reverts to old methods. The room was quiet except for Milan's ambient hum through sealed windows. There's another option, Alina said carefully. We have information about Marchesi's operations that might interest regulatory authorities, not manufactured, just facts that have been overlooked. You want to report him, I said. I want to defend ourselves using the same weapons he's using. Regulation, investigation, procedural scrutiny. Let him experience what he's inflicting on us. Alina's expression was neutral. It's escalation, but legal escalation. Dante was silent for a long moment, staring at the documents on the screen. No, he said finally. We don't weaponize regulation against him. That makes us identical to what we're trying to replace. Then what? Alina's frustration was visible. We just absorb the attack. We defend ourselves properly, lawyers, documentation, full cooperation with investigators. We prove there's nothing to find. And we continue building legitimate operations until we're too established to be harassed away. He turned from the screen. It's slower. It's more expensive. But it doesn't require becoming what we're fighting. That's idealistic, I said. That's principled. There's a difference. His smile was tired. Your grandfather tried this. He wasn't strong enough to survive it. Maybe I won't be either, but I'm going to try. Alina stood. I'll tell Marco to prepare full defensive documentation. This will cost $500,000 in legal fees and probably 6 months of distraction. Then that's the cost. Dante watched her leave, then turned to me. You're thinking your grandmother was right, that kind people in complicated business are complicated themselves. I'm thinking you're choosing a harder path when easier ones exist. The easier path would destroy what I'm building. He moved to the window. My father chose easy. He made compromises, built relationships with people like Marchesi, operated in gray areas because it was efficient. By the time he realized he'd built a prison, the bars were already locked. He died trapped inside a business he couldn't escape. How did he die? Heart attack at 52. Stress, rage, and recognition that he'd become someone he wouldn't have recognized at 30. Dante's reflection in the glass looked older than his years. I watched him realize it, watched him try to change it, watched him fail because you can't reform a business built on compromise. You can only build a different business. That's what I'm doing. By hearing your dead partner's granddaughter. By hearing someone whose grandfather tried the same thing and failed, you understand the stakes, you know the cost. He turned to face me. That's why you're here. Not because you're symbolic, but because you know exactly what I'm attempting and why it matters. I stood there processing, trying to sort strategy from sincerity. The 3 months are almost up, I said. 10 weeks, not almost. Close enough to start thinking about what happens after. What do you want to happen? The question hung in expensive air between us. What did I want? Safety and dignity for Nana, financial stability for myself, meaningful work that didn't make me invisible, but underneath that, something I didn't want to name yet. I want to believe you're building something different, I said finally, not just building the same thing with better PR. So do I, his smile was brief. That's why this matters. Not because I need to prove something to Marchesi or the industry, because I need to prove it to myself. Outside, Milan spread beneath us in geometric light. Somewhere in that machinery, Marchesi was making phone calls, filing documents, weaponizing systems meant to protect into tools of harassment. Somewhere else, my grandmother slept in a room overlooking an alpine lake, comfortable for maybe the first time in years. And here, in this apartment that still didn't quite feel like mine, I stood across from a man who might be everything he claimed or nothing he promised, trying to decide which version I believed. I'll stay, I said, through the investigation, through whatever Marchesi does next. But Dante, if you revert, if you become what you're fighting, I'm gone. No negotiation, no transition period, just gone. Fair, he extended his hand. Deal. I shook it, his grip firm and warm, and possibly the most dangerous thing I'd touched all week. Deal, I said, and felt the future settle into something I couldn't quite name yet but would learn to navigate regardless. The investigation launched with bureaucratic efficiency and maximum publicity. Maritime authorities announced reviews of Valent logistics compliance procedures. Financial regulators opened inquiries into Sicilian partnership structures. News outlets covered it with the breathless enthusiasm reserved for business drama that might be scandal. I spent 2 weeks translating Marco's legal responses while Dante gave interviews radiating calm confidence. Elena coordinated with investigators, providing documentation so thorough it bordered on aggressive. The office operated with purposeful intensity, everyone focused on proving what we already knew. There was nothing to find. In week 3, I was translating contractor agreements when Elena appeared at my desk. We have a situation, different kind. Her expression was carefully neutral. There's a gallery opening tomorrow night. Modern Italian art, very prestigious. Marchesi will be there. He's a major patron. Dante wants to attend. Visible confidence sends a message that we're not hiding or concerned. You want me to come? Dante requested you specifically. High-profile event, multiple languages, good opportunity to be seen operating normally. Which is exactly when something will go wrong. Probably, Elena's smile was grim. Bring your sharpest instincts. The gallery occupied a converted church in Brera, all soaring ceilings and dramatic lighting. I wore the blue dress again, pearls at my throat, and felt like armor would have been more appropriate. Dante met me in the lobby wearing a perfectly tailored tuxedo that somehow made him look both elegant and dangerous. You look nervous, he said. I am nervous. Good complacency gets you killed in rooms like these. He offered his arm. Stay close. Marchesi will be watching, probably with allies. We're here to project confidence, not to engage. Inside, Milan's art world circulated with champagne and careful judgments. I recognized faces from magazines, collectors, critics, socialites whose hobby was being seen. Dante moved through it with practiced ease, stopping for brief conversations, introducing me as his interpreter with pride that felt genuine. We were examining a particularly aggressive abstract when I felt attention shift. Marchesi had arrived, flanked by his sons and several men I didn't recognize. He crossed the room with deliberate trajectory. "Dante, what a pleasant surprise." His smile was pure performance. "I didn't expect to see you at cultural events during such a difficult time." I translated the subtext. "I didn't expect you to show your face while under investigation." "Difficult times require normal routines," Dante replied smoothly. "Otherwise, we signal weakness to people who mistake stress for vulnerability." "Wise," Marchesi turned to me. "Signorina Castellano, your grandmother has moved to Switzerland, I hear. Expensive care. Fortunate that you have such generous employers." The threat was delicate as lace. "I know about the care arrangement. I know its leverage." "My grandmother is comfortable," I said carefully. "I'm grateful for any kindness shown to family." "Family is everything, no. We do terrible things to protect family, or for family, the line blurs." He sipped champagne. "Your grandfather understood that. He chose principle over family in the end. Look where it led." "Enough." Dante's voice stayed level but acquired an edge. "You've made your point. We're at a gallery opening, not a negotiation." "Everything is negotiation. You'll learn." Marchesi gestured to a painting nearby, dark oils, violence suggested rather than shown. "This piece interests me. The artist says it's about cycles of revenge in Italian history. How we repeat the same patterns, generation after generation, because we forget the cost until we're already committed." "Or," I said, surprising myself, "it's about breaking cycles, recognizing the pattern before it repeats, choosing differently even when the cost is high." Marchesi studied me with new attention. "Your grandfather would be proud. He believed in breaking cycles too. The cycle broke him instead." Before I could respond, raised voices erupted near the entrance. A man in a dark suit was arguing with gallery security, flashing some kind of credentials. Behind him, more men in suits, officious, scanning the crowd. "Financial police," Elena materialized at Dante's elbow. "I'm guessing not coincidence." Marchesi's smile widened fractionally. "How unfortunate. I hope your documentation is in order." The lead investigator approached our group with the confidence of someone executing a well-planned operation. "Signor Valent, we have questions about your business operations. We'd appreciate your cooperation downtown." "Of course, let me call my lawyer." "Your lawyer can meet us there. We'd prefer to speak with you now." His eyes moved to me. "And Signorina Castellano, as the company's interpreter, you're also requested." My stomach dropped. Elena was already on her phone. Dante's expression didn't change, but I felt him go absolutely still. "Am I under arrest?" he asked calmly. "Not at all, just questions, but declining would be inadvisable." "I'll come." Dante turned to me. "Myra, you don't have to." "I'm coming." If this was theater, I wouldn't let him perform alone. Marchesi watched with undisguised satisfaction as we were escorted out. The gallery crowd parted around us, phones emerging to capture the moment. Tomorrow, this would be news. Logistics CEO questioned in financial irregularities investigation. In the car to the financial police headquarters, Dante was silent. I reached for his hand without thinking, felt him squeeze back once. "This is theater," he said quietly. "Marchesi arranged it. Maximum embarrassment, minimum legal basis. They'll question us for hours, find nothing, and release us. The damage is the questioning itself." "What do I do?" "Answer truthfully, don't speculate. Don't fill silences, let them work for their questions." He met my eyes. "And Myra, thank you for coming, you didn't have to." "Yes, I did. We're in this together now." His smile was brief and real, apparently so. The questioning lasted 6 hours. They separated us into different rooms, asked the same questions a dozen different ways, searched for inconsistencies in answers I gave truthfully because there was no deception to maintain. They wanted details about Sicilian partnerships, offshore accounts that didn't exist, cash transactions we'd never made. I translated documents, explained legitimate business structures, and watched them grow frustrated as their theories evaporated. At 3 a.m., they released us with apologies that felt like insults. Marco waited in the lobby, furious and protective. This was harassment. We're filing complaints. No, Dante said tiredly. We're documenting it and moving on. Complaints give them more publicity. Silence suggests it was exactly as empty as it actually was. Outside, Dawn was attempting to break over Milan. Elena had sent Tommaso, who drove us back in silence that felt like exhaustion and relief mixed together. At my apartment building, Dante walked me to the door. Go sleep, take tomorrow off. We'll regroup Tuesday. Are you okay? I asked. I'm furious, but functionally okay. He hesitated. Thank you for not panicking, for being there. It mattered. That's what partnership means, right? Being there when it's difficult. Is that what we are, partners? The question hung in pre-dawn air between us. I thought about handshakes and contracts, and 3 months that were somehow almost over. I don't know yet, I said honestly. Ask me again when I'm not exhausted. His smile was soft, fair. He waited until I was inside before leaving. I rode the elevator up, let myself into the apartment, and stood at the window watching Milan wake up around whatever we just survived together. My phone buzzed. Nana somehow awake in Lugano. I saw the news. Are you okay? I'm fine, just tired. Theater, not danger. Theater can be dangerous too. Be careful. And Bambina, if you're falling in love with him, make sure it's him you love, not the idea of him. I looked at my reflection in the darkened window, at the woman wearing expensive clothes and standing in an expensive apartment, who just spent 6 hours defending a man she'd met 6 weeks ago. Too late to ask that question, I texted back, already falling, trying to land safely. Her response was immediate, then land together or not at all. Half falling breaks people. I went to bed as sunrise turned Milan gold, and dreamed about cycles that broke or repeated depending on choices I hadn't quite made yet. Tuesday morning the office felt different, something sharper in the air, a sense of battle joined. Dante was in meetings all morning. Elena briefed me in his absence. The investigation is officially closed. They found nothing because there's nothing to find. But the publicity damaged us. 3 clients suspended contracts pending review. 2 potential partnerships want additional legal guarantees. And Marchesi is quietly suggesting to others that where there's smoke, there's fire. She pulled up financial projections. We're losing ground, not catastrophically but measurably. What's the response? Dante is doubling down on legitimacy. He's scheduling external audits, increasing transparency, and personally meeting with every client to reinforce our clean operations. She paused. He's also planning something for Marchesi. Won't tell me what, which means it's either brilliant or potentially destructive. Maybe both. At noon, Dante emerged from meetings looking determined in ways that made me nervous. Myra, my office. I followed him up. He closed the door, gestured to the couch rather than the formal chairs. I need to tell you something, and then I need you to make a decision. He sat across from me, leaning forward, hands clasped. Luca Santorelli called this morning. Marchesi wants another meeting. Neutral territory, just the 2 of us, no lawyers, no staff. A conversation about finding accommodation before this escalates further. That sounds like a trap. It is, but it's also an opportunity. His eyes were steady. He wants to establish dominance privately. Prove that despite my clean operations, I still need to negotiate traditionally with men like him. He'll offer terms, probably percentage of Sicilian operations, recognition of territorial authority, something that codifies his power over mine. What will you say? No, and I'll explain why his model is dying, why harassment tactics only delay the inevitable, and that he can either adapt or watch the industry change around him. Dante's smile was thin. It won't go well. He'll threaten, I'll hold firm, and we'll leave as enemies instead of competitors. So why take the meeting? Because I need to hear him threaten directly, on record, with witnesses who aren't his people. He pulled out his phone, showed me a text from Luca. The meeting is at his villa. He's offered to have security present, his security neutral and professional. Whatever is said will be documented, even if not official. If Marchesi crosses lines, we have proof. You want me there? I said it as fact, not question. I want you there. To translate if needed, but mostly, he hesitated, as someone I trust watching my back. Elena is too close, too loyal. Marco thinks in legal terms. I need someone who sees clearly and will tell me if I'm making a mistake before I make it. That's a lot of weight to put on your interpreter. You're not my interpreter anymore. You haven't been for weeks. He met my eyes. You're my partner, if you choose to be. This is me asking if you choose to be. The room was quiet except for Milan's ambient sound through thick glass. Partnership meant something. Meant standing beside him when Marchesi threatened. Meant risking whatever Marchesi might do in retaliation. Meant choosing this world, these stakes, this man. When is the meeting? I asked. Friday afternoon, Como. I'll be there, I stood. But Dante, if he threatens Nana, if he even implies threatening her, I'm pulling you out of that room. Principle is important, but she's my line. Agreed. He stood too. For what it's worth, Marchesi is old school. He doesn't target family, it's beneath him, but I understand the fear. Good, fear is wisdom wearing practical shoes. His smile was real. Who said that? My grandmother, before she got sick. Before I started working for complicated men in complicated businesses. Am I complicated? Extremely, but honestly complicated, which is somehow worse. I moved toward the door. Friday, Como, I'll be ready. Thursday, I visited Nana in Lugano. She was sitting up, reading, looking more alive than I'd seen her in months. The alpine light agreed with her, or maybe just the dignity of dying somewhere beautiful. You're here midweek, she observed. Something important happening. I pulled a chair close. There's a meeting tomorrow, Dante and his main rival. It could get ugly. And you're going? Yes. Why? I thought about the question, really thought. Because he asked me to, because I believe what he's building matters, and because I can't let him walk into that room alone. You love him, she said it simply. Maybe, probably, I don't know if it matters. It always matters. She set down her book. Your grandfather and I fell in love during a war, not a shooting war, but the kind of war that happens in boardrooms and shipyards when men decide who controls what. We thought love would protect us. It didn't, but it made the fight worthwhile. How did you survive it? By choosing each other over the fight, every time. When his partners pressured him to compromise, when my family told me to leave, when the threats came, we chose each other. Her eyes were distant. Until the moment he chose principle over me. That's what killed him, not a car accident, choosing the right thing over the safe thing. Do you regret it, staying with him? I regret that he died. I don't regret loving him. She took my hand. If your Dante is who you think he is, love him. But make sure he chooses you too. Make sure you're not just the person standing beside him in the fight. Make sure you're the person he comes home to after. How do I know the difference? You ask directly, before the meeting, not after. Her grip tightened. Promise me you'll ask. I promise. That night back in Milan, I called Dante. Can I come over? He lived in a penthouse across the city, all glass and steel and views that made my apartment look modest. I'd never been there. He opened the door in casual clothes, looking younger and more uncertain than I'd ever seen him. This is unexpected, he said. I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. We stood in his living room, facing each other. His space was surprisingly warm, books everywhere, Art that looked chosen rather than decorated, lived in comfort underneath the luxury. Am I just the person standing beside you in the fight? I asked. Or am I something more? He was silent for a long moment. You terrify me. That's not an answer. It is. You terrify me because you're the first person in years who makes me want something beyond building the business. You make me want to come home to someone, not just to somewhere. He stepped closer. But I don't know if I can give you that. Not while I'm still fighting this fight. Not while people like Marchesi are trying to destroy what I'm building. So I wait until the fight is over. The fight might never be over. That's what terrifies me. He reached for my hand. Myra, I'm offering you something complicated and probably unfair. I'm asking you to stand beside me in the fight while hoping that eventually there's an after where we're something more. I can't promise the after. I can only promise I want it. That's not enough. I know, his voice was rough, but it's all I have right now. I should have left, should have walked away from the honest uncertainty, from the possibility that I'd spend years standing beside someone who never actually came home to me. But Nana's voice was in my head. Love him, but make sure he chooses you too. I'm going to the meeting tomorrow, I said. I'm standing beside you, but Dante, after this, after Marchesi, you have to choose, the fight or us, not both forever. Eventually you have to choose. And if I choose wrong, then I leave, and you build your legitimate empire alone. He pulled me closer, kissed me with something like desperation mixed with promise. It tasted like coffee and expensive cologne, and choices neither of us had quite made yet. Tomorrow, he said against my hair, let's survive tomorrow, then we'll figure out everything else. I stayed the night in his guest room, and in the morning we drove to Como together, watching the Alps rise around us like walls or sanctuary depending on how you looked at them. Luca's villa looked different in afternoon light, less theatrical, more like a home where serious conversations happened over good wine. He met us at the door with the careful neutrality of someone hosting a duel. Dante, Myra, he's on the terrace. Are you ready? Dante squeezed my hand once. Ready. Marchesi sat at the same table as before, alone this time, looking older without his entourage. He stood as we approached. Thank you for coming. His voice carried genuine respect. This conversation is important. Let's have it honestly. We sat. Luca poured wine, withdrew to a diplomatic distance. Marchesi took a slow sip, gathering his thoughts. I'm going to offer you something, he said, and I want you to really hear it before you refuse. Take a percentage of my Sicilian operations, 20%. Silent partner, no operational control, just profit participation. In exchange, you operate everywhere else with my blessing. No harassment, no regulatory complaints, no territorial disputes. Clean boundaries. Why would you offer that? Dante asked carefully. Because I'm 68 years old and tired. Because my sons want to fight you, and I know fighting will destroy what we've built. His eyes were sharp despite the aged voice. Because your father and I were friends before we were competitors, and I owe his memory better than making his son's life impossible. What's the catch? The catch is you accept that some things will never be fully legitimate. The cargo moving through those Sicilian channels won't always have perfect documentation. The relationships that smooth the bureaucracy won't always appear on tax forms. 20% means you profit from what you claim to be fighting. Marchesi leaned forward. That's the real offer. Financial comfort in exchange for accepting that your principles are performance, not practice. Dante was silent. I watched his face, saw the calculation happening behind careful composure. No, he said finally. You didn't think about it. I've been thinking about it for 6 weeks. Every time you've attacked, every regulatory complaint, every client you've tried to turn against me, you've been offering this same deal with different words. Compromise in exchange for peace. A percentage of your world in exchange for giving up mine. Dante set down his wine. The answer is no. Not because I'm naive about how the industry works. because accepting your 20% destroys any possibility of building something different. Something different doesn't exist in this business. Not yet, but it could. Dante's voice gained intensity. Your model is dying, Vittorio. The regulations are tightening. The scrutiny is increasing. The next generation wants transparency and clean operations. You can either adapt or become obsolete. I'm offering to help you adapt. By taking my territory. By showing a different way to operate that doesn't require territory and tradition and quiet arrangements. Legal frameworks, proper contracts, modern logistics that don't rely on who knows who. Marchesi laughed without humor. You sound like your father, before this industry ate him alive. My father compromised until he couldn't recognize himself. I'm not compromising, that's the difference. Dante stood. Thank you for the offer, I'm declining it. If you want to continue fighting, I'll continue defending. But I won't accept peace at the cost of becoming you. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Dante extended his hand. I respect what you built. I don't want to destroy it, but I won't join it. Marchesi studied the offered hand for a long moment before shaking it. Your father would be proud and horrified, just like I am. He released Dante's hand. Go build your impossible thing. I'll watch with interest, and when it fails, I'll be here with the same offer. And if it succeeds, then I'll be the first to admit I was wrong, a faint smile. But I won't hold my breath. We left with Luca's farewell and neutral encouragement. In the car, Dante was silent for miles, watching Camo's lake disappear behind us. Did I just make a catastrophic mistake? He asked finally. I don't know. Did it feel like a mistake? It felt like the only choice I could make, and still be able to look at myself in the morning. Then it was right, even if it costs everything. He reached for my hand, held it while Tommaso navigated alpine roads. What you said last night, he said quietly, about me needing to choose, you're right. The fight doesn't end, but at some point I have to decide what I'm fighting for, the business or a life that includes more than business. Have you decided? I'm deciding, actively daily trying to figure out if the two can coexist. He turned to look at me. But Myra, if I'm going to try, I need to know you're actually here, not standing beside me out of obligation or debt or whatever started this. Actually here because you choose to be. I'm here, I said it simply. I've been here since you walked into that study and offered me choices when I had none. I'm here because you're trying to build something that matters, and because when I stand beside you, I feel less alone than I've felt in years. Even though it's complicated. Especially because it's complicated. Uncomplicated is boring. He laughed, real, surprised, relieved. We should get that embroidered on something. We drove back to Milan as evening turned the city into light against darkness. At my apartment, he walked me to the door again. Tomorrow, I'm meeting with the clients we lost, going to make the case for why transparent operations matter more than temporary uncertainty. It might not work. It might, I touched his face, and either way we figure out the next step. He smiled. I like that word. Good, get used to it. I kissed him there in the lobby, with security cameras and late evening dog walkers as witnesses, and felt something settle that had been unsettled for weeks. Upstairs I called Nana. How was the meeting? She asked. He said no to the compromise, chose principle over peace. Like your grandfather. Like my grandfather, but Nana, I think he might actually survive it. The world is different now. Legitimate operations are possible in ways they weren't 30 years ago. And you, will you survive standing beside him while he tries? I think so. I think we might survive it together. Her laugh was soft. Then I'm glad. Your grandfather and I didn't get the together part. I hope you do. Me too. That night, I stood at my window watching Milan's geometry of light, and thought about cycles that repeated or broke depending on choices people made in rooms where principle fought survival. Below, the city moved forward into whatever happened next. I went to bed feeling like I'd made a choice that would either define my life or end it, and somehow both possibilities felt equally right. The next 3 weeks unfolded with controlled chaos. Dante met with every client, made his case, and slowly, painfully slowly, began winning them back. Alina coordinated a PR campaign that positioned Valent Logistics as the future of transparent shipping. Marco filed so many legal protections that we joked about buying him his own courthouse. And Marchesi went quiet. That's the dangerous part, Alina said during a Friday briefing. When men like him go quiet, they're either accepting defeat or planning something worse. Or they're adapting, Dante countered. Maybe he's actually thinking about modernization. That's optimistic. I prefer it to paranoid. I split my time between translation work and visits to Lugano. Nana was stable, not improving, but not declining. Dr. Weber said she could have months or weeks depending on variables no one could control. She spent her days reading, watching the lake, and offering commentary on my relationship with Dante that ranged from supportive to skeptical often in the same conversation. He chose principle, she said during one visit. That's good. Now watch what he does when principle becomes expensive. He's already paying the cost. Lost clients, regulatory harassment, industry resistance. Those are business costs. I'm talking about personal costs, what he sacrifices when the business needs one thing and you need another. Her eyes were sharp. That's the test. Not saying no to Marchesi in a dramatic meeting, saying no to late-night work calls when you need him home, saying no to expansion opportunities when they mean less time together. That's when you learn what he actually chooses. She was right, and I didn't know the answer yet. In week 4, something shifted. Marchesi's company announced a restructuring, bringing in outside consultants to modernize operations, implementing new compliance procedures, hiring a full-time legal team focused on regulatory adherence. The announcement was careful and professional, but the subtext was clear. He was adapting. Dante read the news in his office with something like vindicated exhaustion. He's actually doing it, he said, publicly committing to legitimization. Or he's performing it, I cautioned, making it look like change without actual change. Either way, it reduces his ability to attack us for doing what he's now claiming to do himself. He leaned back. This might actually work, Myra. The industry might actually be changing. That evening, he took me to dinner. Not a business dinner, just us, at a small place in Navigli where no one knew his name. We ate risotto and drank wine and talked about things unrelated to logistics and territory and principle. Tell me about your parents, he said. You never talk about them. They died when I was 7. Car accident, quick and complete. I turned my wine glass. I remember my mother's perfume and my father's laugh and almost nothing else. Nana raised me, became mother and father and teacher and friend all at once. That's why her care matters so much. It's why her care is everything. She gave me her life. The least I can do is make her death comfortable. It's not the least, it's the most. He reached across the table for my hand. Thank you for telling me. I know that's not easy. We walked home along the canal, his arm around my shoulders, talking about futures that might actually exist beyond the fight. At my building, he kissed me good night with the sweetness of something becoming real. Stay with me tomorrow night, he asked. Actually with me, not in the guest room. Are you sure? I'm terrified, but yes, I'm sure. His smile was vulnerable in ways I'd never seen. I want to try the uncomplicated part, even if we're terrible at it. We'll probably be terrible at it. Then we'll be terrible together. I kissed him again, feeling something shift from potential to actual. Tomorrow night, I agreed. Let's be terrible together and see what happens. Saturday was ordinary in extraordinary ways. I worked through morning emails, visited Nana in the afternoon, drove back to Milan as evening turned the Alps gold. At Dante's penthouse, he'd attempted cooking, pasta carbonara that was slightly overcooked but made with such obvious effort that I wanted to cry. "You cooked," I said. "I attempted cooking. There's a difference." He poured wine with more success than the pasta, but I wanted tonight to be normal, or what normal could look like for us. We ate dinner talking about books and music and the kind of minor opinions that revealed character. He loved jazz, hated modern art, and secretly enjoyed terrible reality television. I loved poetry, didn't understand jazz, and had watched every cooking competition show ever made. "We're disasters," he said, laughing. "Complementary disasters." After dinner, we stood at his windows watching Milan spread below us in light and geometry. His arms came around me from behind, and I leaned back into his warmth. "I keep waiting for this to feel wrong," I said quietly. "For the moment when I realize I've made a terrible mistake choosing you, choosing this life." "Has it come?" "No, it keeps feeling more right. That's what scares me." I know the feeling. His breath was warm against my hair. I keep waiting to revert, to become my father, to compromise principle for efficiency, to wake up trapped in a business I can't control. But every time the choice comes, you're there, reminding me why the hard way matters. "That's a lot of weight to put on your girlfriend." "Is that what you are, my girlfriend?" I turned in his arms. "I don't know, what am I?" "The person I choose." He said it simply. "When the meeting comes, or the crisis hits, or the choice appears between the easy path and the right one, you're the person I choose. Not the business, not the principle, not the fight. You. Promise me that." "I promise to try, and when I fail, I promise to recognize the failure and fix it." He kissed me softly. "That's the best I can offer, trying and recognizing failure. That's more than most people offer." We made love that night with the tenderness of people discovering each other, learning the topography of shared vulnerability. Afterward, lying in expensive sheets with Milan glowing beyond the windows, I felt something settle that had been restless for months. "This is nice," I said. "Nice. Uncomplicated nice. Just being together nice. We should do more of this. The uncomplicated part, or the being together part?" "Both, definitely both." I fell asleep in his arms and dreamed about futures where principle and partnership coexisted without one destroying the other. Sunday morning arrived with coffee and newspapers and the comfortable silence of people who didn't need conversation to feel connected. We were reading separate sections at his dining table when his phone buzzed with the particular tone that meant Alina with urgent news. He answered, listened, and went very still. "When?" he asked. "How bad?" A pause. "Okay, I'm coming. No, she should know. I'll tell her." He ended the call and set down his phone with careful control. "What happened?" I asked. "Marchesi had a heart attack last night. He's stable but serious. His family is at the hospital in Genoa." Dante's voice was neutral, professional. "Alina thinks I should visit, show respect, demonstrate that we're not enemies despite the conflict." "Should I come?" "Do you want to?" "I want to be where you are. If you're visiting him, I'm coming." We drove to Genoa in 2 hours, arriving at a private hospital that catered to people who valued discretion. Marchesi's family occupied a waiting room, his wife, elegant and exhausted, his sons, protective and wary, various relatives creating the architecture of Italian family crisis. Francesco stood as we entered. "Dante, thank you for coming." "How is he?" "Resting, stable. The doctors say he'll recover, but—" Francesco's voice broke slightly. "He's old. This is a warning, he knows it." "May I see him?" Francesco consulted with his mother, who nodded slowly. 5 minutes. He tires easily." Marchesi's room was all medical efficiency and flowers sent by people paying respects. He lay in bed looking smaller than I'd ever seen him, but his eyes were sharp when we entered. Dante, you came to see if I was actually dying or just pretending for sympathy. I came to pay respects and make sure you're recovering. Dante pulled a chair close. The industry needs your experience, even if we disagree on methods. Flatterer, but Marchesi smiled. I'm not dying, not today, but my body is sending clear messages about mortality. He looked past Dante to me. Signorina Castellano, your grandfather visited my father in the hospital once, family enemy, but he came anyway, paid respects. Some debts transcend business. I hope you recover fully, I said. I hope I live long enough to see if Dante's impossible thing actually works. He returned his attention to Dante. I'm stepping back. Francesco will run operations. I'll advise, but I'm done with the fight. Too tired, too old, too aware that time is finite. I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be, I'm relieved. His voice was rough. Build your legitimate empire. I'll watch from the sidelines. And when you compromise, because eventually you will, I'll be here to remind you that every generation thinks they can change everything until the business changes them instead. I appreciate the encouragement, Dante said dryly. It's realism, but I hope I'm wrong. Marchesi's eyes were closing. Now leave, I need rest, and Dante, thank you for coming, it matters. Outside, Francesco walked us to the car. He means it, you know, about stepping back. This scared him, made him realize he'd rather spend his remaining years with family than fighting over territory and principle. I'm glad, Dante said honestly, for him and for the industry. He asked me to tell you something. Francesco lowered his voice. He said your father would be proud of the man you've become, even if he wouldn't understand your methods. He wanted you to know that. Dante nodded, not trusting his voice. The drive back to Milan was quiet. I held his hand while he processed grief for a man who wasn't dead, recognition that the fight was ending not through victory, but through natural transition. My father was 40 when I was born, he said eventually. Dead by 52. I'm 34. I keep thinking about how little time we might actually have, how much of it I've spent fighting instead of living. You're building something that matters, that's living. Or its elaborate avoidance of actual life, relationships, family, things beyond business. He glanced at me. I don't want to reach 68 and realize I built an empire but forgot to build a life. Then don't choose differently, starting now. Starting when? Right now, today, tomorrow, every day until it becomes habit instead of exception. He pulled over at a rest stop overlooking the valley, alpine views stretching forever in every direction. We got out, stood in wind that smelled like distance and possibility. Marry me, he said. I stared at him. What? Not now, not even soon, but eventually when the fight is actually over and the legitimate business is actually established. Marry me. Build the life, not just the empire, together. That's the least romantic proposal I've ever heard. I'm not proposing, I'm declaring intent. The actual proposal will be better. His smile was nervous and real. I'm saying I choose you, not eventually, not after the fight. Now, you're the person I want to build everything with, the business and the life and the impossible thing we're trying to create. You're serious. Terrifyingly serious. I kissed him there beside the highway with trucks passing and alpine wind pulling at our clothes and future spreading out like the valley below. Uncertain, beautiful, possibly terrible, definitely ours. Yes, I said against his mouth. Eventually, when we've earned it, yes. We drove the rest of the way home planning futures that looked nothing like the fight, everything like the life. 2 weeks later, Nana slipped into final decline. Dr. Weber called on a Tuesday morning. Her organs were shutting down, hours not days. Come now if I wanted to say goodbye properly. Dante drove me to Lugano. I held her hand while alpine sun painted the lake gold and she drifted in and out of consciousness. In her lucid moments, she smiled. You look happy, she said. That's good, that's what I wanted. I love him, Nana. We're building something together. Your grandfather and I built something too. It collapsed, but it was beautiful while it lasted. Her grip was weak. Love him. Let him love you. Don't martyr yourself to principle the way we did. I won't, I promise. Good girl, her eyes closed. I'm tired now, I'm going to rest. I'll be here when you wake up. I know you always are. She died at sunset peacefully, holding my hand while the lake turned colors outside her window. Dante held me while I cried, didn't try to fix anything, just stayed. We buried her a week later in Agrigento, beside my grandfather in the cemetery that overlooked the sea. Dante arranged everything: the service, the flowers, the gathering afterward where distant relatives shared stories I'd never heard. He stayed beside me through all of it, solid and present and exactly what I needed. That night at the small hotel where we'd stayed, I stood at the window watching Mediterranean dark. Thank you, I said, for being here, for handling everything, for not leaving me alone through this. Where else would I be? He came to stand behind me, arms around my waist. You're my partner. This is what partners do. My grandmother thought you were like my grandfather, principled to the point of self-destruction. Am I? I don't think so. I think you're principled enough to build something real, but not so principled that you forget why you're building it. I leaned back against him. You choose both, the business and the life. That's the difference. We choose both, he corrected, together. We flew back to Milan the next morning. Life continued, meetings and contracts and the slow building of legitimate empire. Francesco took over Marchese's operations and immediately instituted the modernization his father had announced. The industry started changing, slowly, toward transparency and legal frameworks. 3 months later, Dante proposed properly, at the same cafe where he'd first offered me the job, with a ring that looked like my grandmother's pearls transformed into diamonds and promises. This is where we started, he said. Seems like the right place to ask, will you marry me? Properly, officially, build the whole impossible life together. Yes, I said, obviously yes. We married a year later at Luca's villa, with Camo's Lake as witness and the business running smoothly enough that we could take 3 weeks for honeymoon. We traveled to places where nobody knew our names, spoke languages just for pleasure, and built the uncomplicated life between the complicated work. 5 years after that meeting where I broke protocol to answer a phone call, Valent Logistics had expanded across Europe using contracts and lawyers and proper channels. I ran the translation department, taught classes on linguistic navigation in business, and occasionally looked at the woman in the mirror, confident, valued, chosen, and marveled at transformation. Dante and I built a home in the hills outside Milan, close enough to work but far enough to breathe. We had a daughter who looked like me but laughed like him. We made Sunday dinners an obligation, kept separate offices, and fought about whose turn it was to handle school pickup. On quiet nights, I'd read my grandfather's annotated Dante and think about cycles that broke or repeated, about men who chose principle and women who stood beside them, about debt that became choice, chains that became adornments, and cold anonymity that transformed into warm chosen home. What are you reading? Dante asked one night, finding me on our terrace. My grandfather's notes about souls who chose freely until circles closed, trying to figure out if we escaped the circles or just built better ones. We built better ones, he settled beside me. We chose each other. That's the difference between trap and sanctuary, whether you chose to be there. You really believe that? I'm living it, so are you. He kissed my temple. Come to bed. Tomorrow's complicated enough without borrowing philosophy from Dante Alighieri. I closed the book, stood, took his hand. Below us, Milan glowed like proof that cold streets could lead to warm interiors, that invisible workers could become visible partners, that impossible things were possible if you chose rightly and stood firm. We went inside to the life we'd built, complicated, principled, chosen ours. Behind us, the city continued its eternal geometry of light and shadow, cycles and choices, souls ascending or descending based on decisions made in moments that seemed small until they defined everything.